All right. What's up, y'all? And welcome back to the Michael Experience Podcast. I am your orator and originator, Michael. And these are my thoughts, my life, my way. So I have to tell y'all that one thing that I've been doing since rediscovering myself after being in a relationship is figuring out what I like, what I don't like. And I covered some of that in the dating series, but also just like in general, you know what I mean? Like, what places do I want to frequent? What TV shows do I want to watch? All of that kind of stuff. But to go even further, I've realized that I'm so out of the loop on a lot of things, especially in the gay community. Now, to be fair and to be honest, I never really felt like I was 100% into it or whatever. Like, as far as dating, absolutely. And you would think because I'm a very passionate person that I get into that. I really don't. I just do my thing and I go home. So I don't really feel like I was in it anyway. But coming out of a relationship where you just didn't really get into it. Like me and my guy, what I really love is we never went to the club together. We have never been to the club together. And when we were together, I really feel like I didn't go out much. I've never been a club head anyway, but I didn't even go out much. I think at the beginning when we weren't like living together and seeing each other regularly because of distance, I definitely didn't, I did go out, excuse me. I did when we were long distance, I went out with friends and stuff like that. But once I relocated and we were closer, and then especially when we started living together, I kind of just was like, you know what? I really don't need that. I didn't even think about it. But but the point of it is in that relationship, I went to work. I came home to my man and my child at the time. She grown now. And we lived life. We went to restaurants. We made sure we had date nights on the weekends. And I was 1000% content in that. But coming out of that and trying to figure out what my likes and dislikes are and like where I want to be and what circles I want to run in, it has been so crazy. So I guess this is my long winded way of saying that in that phase of self rediscovery, there is a period where it just feels rough, and the places that you used to go and the things that you used to know just don't feel the same anymore. And it's almost like being in a time warp where you've waken up and then the world has continued around you. I don't know if y'all can understand that, but allow me to allow me to iterate. So one thing that I really never got into was like social media drama and stuff like that. I never really got into things like Chasing Dallas. I never got into the stuff that goes on with the adult content creators. I never got into that stuff. Just never. And I think I was aware that it existed, but I never had like this desire or wanting to know about it. And so I don't know if that's because I was in a relationship or I just didn't give a damn about that kind of stuff, which is, I don't know, probably a little bit of both. But now that I'm rediscovering and the old stuff doesn't feel right, I'm like, well, okay, let me go over here. So I know I don't like watching people knock each other upside the head because it just seems pointless to me. Like, what are we, savages or something? So I know I don't want to see that. I don't want to see the cat fights. I don't want to see, people just being mean spirited to each other for no reason. It just seems crazy. Like, whatever. And so I ended up in toxic relationship land because I started watching podcasts on YouTube. And sometimes when you're watching these podcasts, another thing will roll on afterwards. So I've really been, for like my own self enrichment, looking at more lifestyle podcasts, fitness, a lot of fitness podcasts because I'm still on that journey and elevating that journey. But also just lifestyle stuff, people who do different things and travel and do blase. But then I was like, you know what, Michael, for you to be gay, right? You really don't know enough about being gay. You know what I'm saying? Because I've always shied away from questions about being gay. When people ask me, I'm like, only thing I can tell you is if I'm with a man and what that experience is like, I don't know how to have any other conversations about being gay. I don't know how. And so I was like, okay, Michael, this is your opportunity to get informed as you're dating because you need to know this information anyway. So I revisited a podcast that I learned about not too long ago. It's called Dear Black Gay Men. Love it, love it, love it. But then I was like, let me find some others. I mean, I watched Craig the Writer, Stewart, and I love his telling our stories. So that's amazing. But then I watched some other ones where there's like some panels of guys and just that kind of thing, just trying to apprise myself of like the mentalities and like what is going on in the gay world because I wouldn't even know how to get to the front door of the gay world. I can get to the strip, but that's about it. But that's neither here nor there. So as I'm watching one of these, I don't even know. Maybe it was that Pop the Balloon 30 plus edition for gay guys. And that was repulsive to say the least. I mean, I don't know. I can't even really. Anyway, so anyway, that went off. And so then there was this gentleman, Dondre, who popped up and he was talking about how bad the dating pool is. And I guess the algorithm picks up on things like that. And so I watched one video and I was like, oh, okay, like that's just tragic. I'm feeling all bad. And I'm like, that is just crazy or whatever. So then another video plays and it is like him, I guess, with the gentleman and stuff like that. It appeared to be like an exchange in an apartment or something like, he didn't want the guy in his apartment. I was like, oh wow, this is crazy. So I turned it off. And I said to myself, I wasn't going to go back to that. I wasn't going to go back to it. So I went to my regularly scheduled programming and I'm watching what I normally watch. And then after that goes off, there's somebody reviewing his something that he posted recently. And so I was like, well, who is he talking about? I was like, well, who is this guy talking about? So then I go down the rabbit hole and I just I had to I had to gather myself. I clutched my pearls. I was scratching my head, scratching my chin because I was like, wait a minute, what is going on here? And so Dondre and his ex partner slash firm with benefits seem to be having this like back and forth kind of relationship with each other where they're not together, but they act like they're together. And on one hand, I understand being comfortable with somebody, especially when you've experienced the gambit with emotions, right? You've gone through a hardship with somebody, traumatic stuff with somebody, especially I think when it has nothing to do with like the two of you and you go through something very traumatic or difficult. It just there's a level of security and connectedness in that I feel like always stays, because you could be at like, your lowest mentally or emotionally, and if somebody is there and supports you in that way, you'll never forget it because it's not common. It really isn't. So on one hand, I think I understand the level of being comfortable, and then I'm watching them look at each other. I'm watching them talk to each other. Now, energy is a very real thing, and some people think you have to be super close, like in proximity, to experience energy, and that's not necessarily true. It is in the affectations of your hand. It's in the movements of your hand. It's in the articulation of your words, the enunciation, in your language. It's in all of that. It's in your eyes. It's in, it's just all of those nonverbal things, all of those, the movements. Energy is there. And if you're an energy being like myself and you're good at reading energy, you can understand what is happening, right? And I think all of us as people have a level of it, but mine is just a little bit more keen. And so I'm listening to them talk. I'm watching them communicate with each other in every way. And is the situation toxic? For sure. But I think there are a lot of relationships that exist in toxicity because it's comfortable. And it's not always comfortable because of just that one situation, but because toxicity is normal. Like we have normalized it, especially in black communities. Like we've normalized, having these assertive and sometimes aggressive back and forths with each other in banter and in gist with one another in relationship. Some of our mothers and fathers do it with each other, or our grandparents do it with each other, and you can tell that there's still a love there. So, and I'm not saying that this is the only reason, but I'm just saying, like, foundationally in the black community for sure, and maybe other communities too, I can't speak for them, but we've normalized that kind of toxicity with an undertone of love, or coupled with love with a side of love in it. And so it's not that hard for me to conceive that these two people would be in love with each other, but also be toxic to each other, for each other. And I've seen it in many relationships, not even just romantic, but otherwise as well, like where you have to have this back and forth. I had a coworker who I just, like, I feel like we wanted to see each other win, but it was always just like this clashing that had to happen before we could get there. And I don't know. I don't know if that is just the equation to passion. I don't know if that is the equation to just turning one type of energy. I don't know what that is, but I do feel like there's some type of emotional, energetic equation to that kind of energy producing, another kind of output. And so for me, it's not confusing at all. What is probably more confusing in relationships like that is that two people who are conscious of the level of destruction that they do to each other, that continue to participate in the destruction. And that to me is the bigger thing. I think that a lot of people walk through life just blissfully unaware, for the most part, just blissfully unaware. And until you put it on the table or put it in front of them, they never see it, never notice, never acknowledge it, unless they are a person that is focused on growth in every way and is seeking opportunities for growth. And that is not every individual. Now, I know everybody wants to make $1 million, and if you have a million, you want to make another $1 million. So that is one type of growth. But I'm talking about the mental, emotional growth, the self development kind of thing that needs to happen. But that's not the majority of people. There are a lot of people who are locked into this me space, and they don't see anything outside of me. And that's very hard when you're trying to create a relationship dynamic, especially a romantic relationship dynamic. um I'll shift to me now because I don't want to make it about them, and I don't want anybody to think that this is like to shade them or whatever the case may be, because it's not. Like, I don't know either one of them. They both seem lovely in one way or another. Um and so it just was the inciting, thing that made me want to have this conversation. But what I will say about myself is that I have experienced a very deep connection with someone, but I knew that we would not be good for each other. And I'm thinking of someone right now, honestly, who for some reason we can't seem to get out of each other's lives. And I try to be like, I'm just not going to be, like, I'm not going to be receptive. I'm not going to, I'm not going to take phone calls. I'm not going to initiate any phone calls. I'm just going to move away from the situation or whatever. But for some reason, like, we just keep having these moments of connecting. But the interesting thing about it for me is, like, I know that he's not ready to be in a relationship. And more so, I know he's not ready to be in a relationship with me. I do believe that he wants to be loved. And I do believe that he's probably going to be an amazing partner when he realizes, uh, when I shouldn't say when he realizes, when he's finally ready, when he feels like he's really ready. He probably is going to be an amazing, from what I've seen of him, he'll be an amazing partner to someone. But for whatever reason, he has gotten comfortable with me, And I always tell people when a man gets comfortable with you, it can either be a beautiful thing or it can be a very boundary testing kind of thing, because sometimes there's a level of ownership that gets attached to the situation when he gets that comfortable. Now, I'm going to say black men particularly again, and I probably should iterate that as much, but I am because this is my show and I can do as I want to over here. But I would venture to say probably all men, but I'm going to stick with black men, particularly when you don't have a lot of safe spaces and you don't feel comfortable divulging those vulnerable moments and those vulnerable emotions with somebody, right? You latch on to the one person or maybe two people if you're lucky that allows you to express yourself in any and every way. And so I'm reminded of this quote, and I hope I don't mess it up. But Maya Angelou said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And I think that is such a powerful statement because it is certainly true. It is certainly true, even though you can go through some of the most tumultuous times with a person, whether you get over it or not, whether it has a resolve or not, you have some emotional highs and some real emotional lows. The person may forget everything in of and in between that, you know, but they don't forget how you make them feel. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, if they can remember that you made them feel happy, then they can remember you made them sad too. But I would venture to say that safety on that list and that hierarchy is probably one we should focus on a little bit more, because safety, I believe, is the thing that a lot of us as people miss out on. And I love that Cardi B made that song with Kaylani called Safe. I love it because I think it speaks to even me. I am considered like the strongest of the strong when it comes to, my mental power and my ability to just do any and everything. I'm the strong friend and strong family member that everybody, goes to for everything. But if I'm being honest, like I don't feel mentally and emotionally safe with those people. So it's the same kind of, I guess, methodology for me that I would go to if there was a man that made me feel emotionally and mentally secure. I would go to him before I would go to my mom or my sister or somebody. And I love them and I know that they love me and they care, but to just be able to be yourself with somebody, especially as a man, like you get to be that childlike, and I'm not saying childish, but you get to be that childlike person that gets to just, kind of sit back and ask for tutelage or ask for the compassion or the care that you need, and know that you're not going to be minimized or your character is not going to be diminished because of it. And as men, I think that is a very, very important thing that we all need, and it is very hard for us to ask for. Even me, it's very hard for me to ask for it. I found myself challenging myself going into, this new season that I'm in. I found myself saying, like, Mike, when you need something emotionally, like, are you able to just say it? And it took me a while. It took me a very long time to be able to just say it. But I found myself texting, my male friends that you know what I mean, that you know but I found myself texting them like, "Can you give, like, are you free to give me a hug?" And I think it was so foreign to all of them that none of them actually showed up for the hug. Honestly, none of them showed up for the hug. Well, let me take that back. Let me take that back. Initially, when I started doing it, no one responded like, yeah, I'm gonna come give you a hug, or yeah, I'm available to give you a hug. I think my immediate responses that I got was like, oh, what's wrong? Or, oh, whatever it is, you're going to be okay. Oh, you're an amazing human being. This too shall pass. Those are the kind of answers that I got at first. And I was just like, I kind of just need another person who's not like my best friend, or who's not like to just hug me. You know what I mean? That I feel like cares about me. You know what I mean? I just need that hug. I need to just rest on your chest, or whatever that looks like. I be the little spoon today. Whatever it looks like. I just need that bodily contact, but it can't come from someone who I already know what they would say. You know what I mean? I already know what they would say. And maybe that doesn't make sense. Let me try to make it make sense. The difference is, if I call my mom and I say to my mom, I need a hug, and my mom is hundreds of miles away from me, but let's just say hypothetically, I call my mom and said I need a hug. I'm on my way to my mom's house, and I get there. My mom is going to hug me. She is, and she's going to ask me what's wrong, and she's gonna pray, probably tell me to pray, and she's gonna tell me all the great things that I've done in my life, and that I can do anything I put my mind to. I already know that that is what I'm gonna get, but that's not what I need. You know what I'm saying? Similarly, like my sister, if I told my sister I need a hug, I'd get a hug, a very short hug, but again, she would be like, well, I look up to you even though you're the little brother, and you're just kind of like my little big brother, and I look up to you. We both look up to you. My I have an older brother. We both look up to you. If anybody can figure it out, it's you. I know that that is what I'm going to get. The hug is going to be over, and then I'm back to just being like, okay, thank you for telling me what I already know. But there is something about going to someone who allows you to be vulnerable, and who allows you to say, I don't know how to figure it out, right? Like somebody that's not looking at you and already assigning a disposition to you, like, oh, you already got this, or oh, you don't even need, like, there are people that will talk you out of your grief. You know what I mean? And I know some people think that that's okay, but it's not. Some people will talk you out of your grief, as in, you don't need to feel the grief that you're feeling, and you have to go through it. You really do. It's not a bad thing. It's only bad if you stay in it. But like, it's just like somebody, just like growing up, when they be like, boy, stop crying, stop all that crying, you don't need to be crying. It's the same thing when you are emotionally and mentally drained and spent. You really do just kind of need that recharge, and you don't need somebody to come over with a predisposition of, you figured everything else out. You know what I mean? Because that's what it, even though that's not what people mean, that's what it feels like. And so I just challenge myself, like I said, to ask for what I need, and be more vulnerable, because I have a hard time being vulnerable in a lot of ways, especially in those ways. But what I will tell you is, I've learned that not a lot of people care about that. They really don't. Men, women, it doesn't matter. A lot of people don't care. They just don't. And they could be great friends, great feminists, but they really don't care. Or I shouldn't say they don't care. They don't have the level of care that you're looking for. Let me just say that. Um, I found myself saying to guys that had some interest in me beyond just a friendship, asking them to show up, right? I'm like, okay, y'all probably would show up if I slung my, you know, what out. If I slung that out, or if I got on all fours and tooted it up to the roof, you would absolutely run over here. But if I tell you that I need an emotional moment, or I need a mental moment, you know what I mean? I need a hug, I need a embrace. It's so crazy. Nobody's showing up. Nobody's showing up. Now, that was initially. At some point, I think I literally picked up my phone and I said, like, "Are you available?" I remember saying to this guy, I said, "Are you available or not?" I was like, "Are you available or not?" And he was like, "I'm playing the game." I said, "That doesn't answer my question." And he's like, "Okay, like I can be ready." I was like, "Okay, cool." He got himself together and he showed up, and I appreciated him for showing up, and I appreciated him for attempting to give me what I need, you know? I really do. I appreciated it because he also did something that was very nice for me because I just could not cry with him. I just couldn't. Again, I'm asking you to come over so I can have a moment, but I couldn't even have the moment because there was so much inside of me that's like, I, I know I asked you to come and I know you came because you're saying you care about me, but this is foreign for me. This is so foreign for me that now that I got you here for the thing that I have been wanting, I don't even know if I can have the moment with you. And in that moment, he could have just been like, "Yo, like, I listen, I'm not gonna deal with that or whatever." But what I will say is, he literally, we got up out of the bed, you know, uncuddled or what have you not, and he was like, "Come on, like, come on." We walked into my office or whatever. He guided me like a little kid to my office. There was pens in there, paper. I was like, what are we doing? He was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go over here. You go over there. We're gonna write whatever it is that's bothering us. We're gonna write it down, and then we just gonna let it go." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was so blown away in the moment because I've never done that before. Like, that's some stuff I probably saw on 51st Dates or something like that that I used to watch back in the day. But I was so taken by it because I've never done it before. And I was like, "Okay, this is different, but this could be good." And so as I'm sitting across from him, he's writing his things down. I'm writing my things down. Mind you, we're both in our birthday suits. We're both in our birthday suits. And so he's like, "Where's your lighter at?" I'm like, "My lighter?" I'm thinking we're gonna light it on fire in the sink. He's like, "No, we're gonna go out to your backyard and we're gonna light the fire pit and throw it in the fire pit." So I'm like, "Okay." And he's like not putting on any clothes. I'm like, "No, I am not about to just be in my backyard with nothing on." Now, mind you, I could have been, but he's like, "Come on." I mean, anyway, so now we're in the backyard and we're just like having a moment, and we throw the piece of paper in the fire and we watch it burn or whatever. And like, he's just embracing me the whole time. I will never forget that. I will never, ever in my life forget that because it was so different and it made me feel so warm and it made me feel so secure because I couldn't even have the moment that I thought I wanted to have. Like, I just was like, I need somebody to do this for me. How come nobody's gonna show up and do this for me? And when the person finally was like, "Okay, I'm here, I'm showing up," I couldn't do it. However, he found a way for me to still be able to have that moment, to still get everything I needed out, and to still be there to embrace me in both of our vulnerabilities. And I just thought that that was the dopest thing ever. Now, I also realized after the fact that, I had reached out to somebody that I just think we weren't going to be good in relationship together. I reached out to somebody I knew we weren't going to be good in relationship together. So that was a thing that I was like, gosh, like, or whatever. But I really did appreciate him. And I think I immediately felt more comfortable around him. So it's not that he didn't have good qualities. It's just we're just we're very, very different. And he's younger than me. I'll just say that. You know what I mean? And I think I think when you date down a little bit, and I'm talking about date down in age, you could either find ways to connect the generations, or there's going to be like a huge divide in between. But it just really depends on the mentality of the person, and I just didn't think there was going to be a bridge between us. I was like, there is absolutely not going to be a bridge between us. But I will never forget that as long as I live. I was definitely safe with him, and I think if I ever were to have another moment like that, I would want to have it with him because of the way he made me feel, because there's a level of comfort in that that I have not gotten anywhere else, hadn't gotten anywhere else. Um, and I'll give you another story, right? I'll give you the other side of that. I reached out to a gentleman who had kind of been, I shouldn't say he had been pursuing me. He pursued me over a decade ago and then popped back up just by happenstance. And me and this gentleman have conversed like back and forth. It's so on and off. I can't take him seriously. And so on one of those days where I really needed somebody, I was like, I feel like this dude really does care about me, and I'm gonna tell him to come over because I just need somebody to come, and I just need to have a moment. And so he came over, and we were just kind of laying there and stuff like that, and he was being very, very like, being very, very like, compassionate and stuff like that, hugging very, very much like, kissing me on my head and stuff like that, rubbing my back and stuff like while I'm just talking. Now let me tell you, at first I was like, this might be okay. However, then he starts talking, and he starts talking about things that happened in his life. And so as I'm sitting here like, this is really supposed to be my moment and you're hijacking it to talk about like your shit, that's kind of crazy. And so I remember saying like, I let him get off a little bit of it, and then I was like, this is supposed to be about me. He's like, well, yeah, yeah, I thought I was helping or whatever. I was just trying to, share. I thought we were sharing. I was like, no, I'm sharing. You're listening. You're like, this is purely like what I called you over for. So, anywho, I that situation to me, even even after he left, I was just like, yeah, like I don't like, do I feel like you showed up for me? Sure, I feel like you showed up because I asked you to, and I appreciate you for showing up and taking the call or whatever. But I also felt like you didn't really show up to do like any real work, or you didn't really show up for like purely, my interest, because, there was other things too that I'm not mad at. Now, let me not sit here and play, like I'm, Mary Magdalene or somebody. I mean, there was other stuff that I really did appreciate. I really did, but I was like, yo, like under the right circumstances, like I would have been like really like, so gone am I, you. No, 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 da-na-na, okay, let me stop singing. But no, I was like, had this been really like, if I really felt like you was him, like this would have been like over the moon, beyond the stars, through the galaxy type situation. But I remember when he left, I was just like, yeah, no, you didn't come here for me for real. Like, you didn't really come here for me. You came because I asked you to. So I feel like it was more performative in nature, and I didn't feel good about it. But the other one, I was like, yeah, that was dope. Like, you got really creative. So I say this to say that I understand how, in times of trauma, or extreme emotional or mental stress or unrest, that when someone shows up, it opens up this space, kind of like a VIP or a private room, because it's not something that is typical, and it's not something that just happens or you're used to. And so it's easy in that way to fall into, patterns, or fall into, a cycle with somebody. Because I contend, like, I still have moments where I'm like, yo, I just need somebody to come over and hug me, understand me, whatever. But I think I go through my Rolodex. I'm like, nope, 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 nope. And so I keep it to myself. And even though I still have the phone number, I'm like, and I feel like if I did call, he would be like, "Yeah, cool, I'm with you or whatever," and probably would cook me breakfast in the morning too. I won't continue doing it because I know that I would be blurring the lines for us, and I know that we won't be compatible with each other. And it's not to say anything bad about him or even that there's anything grossly wrong on either of our parts. It's just that we're so different that I know it would not work. It just wouldn't, and sometimes that's just the case. And so in knowing that, I'm not going to keep on having him come over because, to be honest, I shared with my best friend that I don't usually like people in my space. I can't usually go to sleep if somebody's in my house. You know what I mean? Like even like we're laying together, I might like go to sleep for a little bit, but I don't like people in my house because then I'm worried about a million and one other things. Like, what are you doing? Like, are you taking my wallet? You know what I'm saying? Are you taking pictures of my credit cards? All that kind of stuff. I'm just constantly like, yo, but what I will say is for that to, be my situation most of the time, this dude, when he was at my house, I didn't even think twice about what he was doing. Like he get out of the bed, he get up very early in the morning. I sleep late. So he gets out of the bed, he goes either in the living room or he goes into my calm room, which the video game and stuff is in there. And he just watches TV or plays a game or gets on the phone or something. And then sometimes he start cooking breakfast or lunch or whatever, whatever. Like he would just be. I wasn't worried about him in that way, but I knew that as for the long haul, he wouldn't be able to show up for my mental and emotional needs. I think for sure, like that display that he did that time was great, but on an everyday level where I need somebody to have higher conversations, deeper conversations, better, deeper subject matter, I just knew it wouldn't happen with him. And even wanting to just talk about elevating in life and what that looks like, I knew that would not potentially happen with him. I feel like he was in a place in his life where he's just cool in it, and it's fine because, you're, you know what I mean. You're, I think 20s. I think he said he was 27. You're 27. I'm 38. So I fully understand like being in that space of like, yo, I mean, I'm just cooling it right now. I'm kicking it at my parents or whatever. And, I got enough to keep my phone bill on and eat. You know what I mean? Like, I understand that, although that wasn't my 27 because I had a kid at 16. So I always had to make sure that I was taking care of business or whatever. But I definitely had my moments in there where I was just like, if I could cool it a little bit, I would cool it a little bit, but it doesn't make him a bad dude or nothing. It just means that we could not be in a situation with each other. But I'm willing to bet that had I let him just be over here every day, all day, he would have stayed, and the man probably would have been here cooking for me every day, doing I might have probably did my laundry and stuff like that because he seemed very much like that type. But the other stuff that is so vitally important to me, I know he wouldn't be able to do. And it wouldn't be fair of me basically to keep him around for, occasional emotional support and housekeeping. Like it just wouldn't be okay. So I was like, I'm not gonna blur that line and call him back. It's better that he goes on about his business, and that safe space, I will just have to hope to find it somewhere else, when I need it, which I haven't at this point. But it's neither here nor there. But the moral of this story is that safety, emotional and mental, maybe even physical for some people, because I don't want to discount that either. That's important, especially if you've gone through some things where physical safety wasn't guaranteed. I think when you get those things, those highly compartmentalized rooms and spaces where you can be free and you can be comfortable, that's what happens, and that's what sometimes keeps two people together when all of the rest of us can see and recognize like this might not be a good situation, but it's that level of of connection or interaction that is has tied you to that person. And I think a lot of us won't move on, not me, but a lot of us won't move on until we find that somewhere else. And I think that's also why some people are serial daters, and they keep, and now this conversation can get much larger, but I think that's why a lot of us are, not me, are serial daters. It's because there is some type of feeling that we've had that we're hoping to find somewhere else. But also in finding it somewhere else, we're looking for all of the parts instead of just one piece. But that's easier said than done, because I think tunnel vision always has us looking for the thing that we feel like we can't have. I think that's all of us. We all want that one thing that life tells us that we cannot have, and in some cases should not have. But I think you go into it like, I need to feel safe in this way. I need to feel in this way. And so that is your leading, that is your leading quality. That is your leading thought. And so yeah, you probably are saying like, I want to be loved the right way. I want to be romance. I want to be this or that or whatever. But the interesting thing is you probably are so tunnel vision that those things occur, but you don't even see them. Like you can't even recognize them because you're looking so hard for that safe space. And I've seen that so much in people, in men, because they're always giving you a test of sorts, if I may say so. I don't have another phrase or word for it, but I think they're testing you in a way. I think a lot of men will give you like a sob story, or will try to give you, I don't know, just some scenario or something just to see how you respond. And that is their way of testing the water to see if, okay, can I really give my goofy self? Can I really give my little whiny voice self? Can I really give, that I need you to help me with my math, or I'm not that good at reading, whatever it may be, right? Whatever your true authentic self is that you don't want to show the rest of the world because you feel like you're going to be judged. I feel like he's testing to see if he can give you that and still remain, the same, at the same level of want and desire after it. And I believe wholeheartedly that that's what happens in a lot of cases. And it's definitely happened for me. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I've been the person to overlook those things, but I'm saying like I've engaged with men realizing that, oh, you're trying to test me. You're trying to test me to see, okay, And here's the thing about me: so much of my makeup is intellectual. I always tell people I'm a sapiosexual, so I really do get off on having deep conversations, and intelligent conversations and moments, and expanding my universe mentally and emotionally too. That I love that too. Because just when you think you are just emotionally whole, somebody comes through and just blows the roof off of that. You're like, now wait a minute, now what is that feeling? And I love that too. I love the newness. I love the elevation in mentalities and in emotions. I just love it. So I definitely have encountered at least a few men who were testing me in that way. But I'm like, okay, game on. Because here's the thing about me, I'm going to do it anyway. And so, what also happens in those situations with me is that sometimes, this is the bad part about it. Sometimes, when you haven't been able to outlet, you just begin to see only that again, but you're seeing it because, okay, I recognize that this person is a safe place. And so now you want to make sure you get everything out. You want to get everything out. You want to talk about everything. You want to express yourself in every single way, like no matter what. And then you forget, you forget that you're supposed to love and romance and be there for them too. And so that is the other side of it. And then when they're asking you to come out of that for a second, you're like, well, wait a minute, like this is my safe space. And so that is the even the more interesting thing, I guess I should say, for lack of a better word, about that, because I've encountered that so many times where I'm like, am I your counselor? Like, you think I'm about to be your counselor and that's it? Nah, you got to love me. You got to hold me. You have to feel me. But I think sometimes it really is just a lack of having that space to do it. And then you forget, for whatever reason, you forget about the other thing because this feels so good. It is the thing that you haven't experienced. Now, I'm not going to say there aren't men that were able to accept that and, try to do, both or things simultaneously. So I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that some of them just, they get lost in that. And then you end up like, okay, I got to walk away because I can't exist in a space where it is one sided and I'm, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a therapist. I'm not a therapist. I just care about you, but some people miss that opportunity too. But again, if you continue in those situations, you can definitely find yourself in toxicity. And it's not one person's fault. When two people are engaged in something and it is a continuous cycle, a repetitious cycle of it, both of you are toxic. Both of you are toxic. And I will reiterate what I said at the beginning of the hour. And it is that when you realize it, the problem isn't that you have toxic moments. You know what I mean? It's not, the issue is not entering into the toxic space. It is that the moment you realize that you are in it and you continue to do it, the both of you, that is the real problem. Because one of you should be trying to break the cycle, or you should be trying to break down the toxicity. So that is the bigger problem in it. But I would just say if you find yourself going into toxic territory, if you find yourself in emotional Chernobyl, and if you don't know what Chernobyl is, go look it up. But if you find yourself in emotional or mental Chernobyl, that as you begin to see the toxicity, as you begin to move about in the toxicity, that hopefully instead of figuring out just more negative ways, figuring out more, um, you know, figuring out contentment and comfortability within the toxicity, that you remove yourself from it. If you can't remove the toxicity itself, whatever that looks like, that you at least remove yourself from it. Because it truly takes two people to have a toxic relationship, situationship, or whatever it is that you got going on. It takes two of you to exist in that space. And my hope is that everybody that enters into that, for whatever reason you enter into it, that you check yourself before you wreck yourself, and you do it before you bring somebody else into your madness. So if you notice that somebody triggered you a little bit more than the average person, because I think we all have something in us, we all have something in us, some quality in us that just does not show itself until we find the right person. And this could be a good or bad thing. For me, I've never been a crash out. I have never been a crash out, especially behind no relationship. But if I found myself wanting to crash out behind somebody, I would definitely need to check myself before I wreck myself. My level of self awareness is so that I would be like, wait a minute, what is this feeling in my chest? Why am I clenching my fist? Why am I grinding my teeth? Like, I am so self aware because I practice that every day. That if somebody came in and my heart was beating out of my chest all the time, I would be like, hold on, player. Like, let me, it's something about what we have going on here that I need to figure out because I am not about to be, 40 and crashing out. I'm not 40 yet, y'all, but I'm approaching it. I'm not about to be 40 and crashing out behind nobody. That is just absolutely crazy. I think underneath it, right, is the root cause. And it's probably not that person. It's just something that reminds you of something from yesteryear or yesterdecade. It's probably something deeply, traumatic from your childhood. It could just be something that you really didn't pay attention to at some point and it reared its head finally. And this is why I always say you have to deal with things as they come, so you don't have to deal with them as you go. Okay, listen here. That's a word for you. Deal with them as they come so you don't have to deal with them when you go, wherever you go. Uh, and so, again, I would have to check myself before I wreck myself. And my hope is that we are all working on growth every single day and that we are all working on our level of self awareness. Number one, to be better to us, for us, with us. When I say us, I'm talking about ourselves. And then in turn, we can go and be that for somebody, with somebody, to somebody else. As I've said before, I'll say it again. If you can't recognize the quality in you, if you can't recognize it in you, you for damn sure aren't going to recognize it in somebody else. And that's love, hate, compassion, sympathy, empathy, whatever. You have to be able to recognize it with self first before you can recognize it somewhere else and then act on it accordingly. All right, y'all. So this is a micro experience podcast. I hope you all got something out of my gibberish today. I feel like I went all over the world and yeah. But hopefully you got something out of it. But yeah, leave the toxicity, dissipate the toxicity, avoid the toxicity, and find your happy place, find your safe place, find your love place, all of the great things that you can muster in your heart and in your mind. All right. Now, y'all go out there and love on yourself before you can love on somebody else. And I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace and love. Bye.